Hello and welcome to the Syndicated Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, and we're here today to finish Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Holy fucking shit, guys. And also, ignore my dog. He's playing with his toy in the background, and he's very into it. So if you hear a little series of growls, it's just a Chihuahua Dachshund. It is nothing scary. So we're finishing up The Mandalorian today, and I am just, my life was incomplete. Now it is complete. Because this fucking show, man, this fucking show is amazing. Disney Plus, they already whipped out their huge cock with all the rest of their content. Your entire childhood is on that streaming service, okay? They whipped out their huge dick and then was like, but wait, there's more. And just slid back and just showed a little more cock. It's fucking unbelievable. You know, this is their first original series. Like they had like Forky ask questions, and I know they were doing some other small things, but this is the big, the big project. All right, this was like what they were really trying to fucking sell subscriptions with, and they fucking nailed it, man. Like, sometimes you never really know if the original content is gonna be worth it. This is worth it, and I know. Like, Ben, you've been talking for like 2 or 3 minutes now. Can we just talk about the fucking Mandalorian? All right, I will. So without further ado, let's go. Season 2, Episode 5. So, also called The Jedi. We start out with something that they had talked about was going to be a part of this season, and I think we all were like sitting on pins and needles just kind of waiting for the shit to go down. We start out with Ahsoka fucking Tano. If anyone grew up watching Clone Wars like I did, Ahsoka Tano is a badass. We and I will be covering the Clone Wars later on this year, hopefully, depending on how long Power Rangers takes. But Ahsoka Tano, it's a character I've really grown up loving in the Star Wars universe. And like she had that brief spot in Rebels. And, until now, there's been a lot of like gray area of like, is she alive? What is she doing? Because obviously in the Skywalker trilogy, we did not really see any mention of her. So we're like, is she still out there somewhere? Well, and it was hinted at. They had casted Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, and we knew she was going to be in The Mandalorian Season 2, but we didn't know when or how she was going to fit in to the shit that was going down. But when we heard that, Mando was looking for a Jedi to train the child, I was like, oh shit, is this where she comes in? And they don't even fucking dick around anymore, which, they're halfway through the season, so I'm glad they didn't. But, opening scene, there she fucking is in all of her amazing Jedi glory, because up to this point in the show, we haven't seen any Jedi shit. It's been all about bounty hunters and soldiers and, criminals and, alien shit. We hadn't really gotten into, we've taken a much needed break from Jedi shit. But you don't really know how much you miss it until it's there. Like when she whips out them dual sabers, man, I lost my fucking mind. Like I became that 11-year-old kid taking this all in for the first time. And it was just fucking amazing. The second you hear that zoom when that lightsaber whips out, I'm like, oh man, this is the show. And my roommates were asleep when I was watching it, so I was trying not to be too loud. But like I almost just screamed because that's the fucking moment, And she just fucks up some guards. I mean, they're droids, and she's slicing them in half. She's slicing them sideways with the fucking 2 sabers. She's cutting trees and shit. She's fucking taking them all out. Badass shit. And then we meet the criminal lady, the big bad of the episode, Elsbeth, who is in control of this town, and she's a mega cunt. And, that's basically all we get is that Ahsoka Tano basically was like, "Bring me to your master," and I'm like, "Who is her master? Who's in charge of this lady?" And she's like, "I'm not giving you anything." And she's like, "I'll kill all these people." And she's like, "Well, they're under you. They're better off dead. I'll be back in a day." And you're like, "Damn!" Like, Ahsoka Tano got dark. And then we cut to Mando and Baby Yoda. And Baby Yoda, as always, is obsessed with that little ball on Mando's control panel. That little silver ball on like the control throttle. And, he's like, "Would you stop playing with it? It's not a toy." And he uses the Force to kind of unscrew it a little bit. So we see that, he's 50, but Yoda's species does not age like we do. Like, he looks like an old man in a baby's body because he's got the wrinkles in the hair, but apparently that's just how they look. I thought that was because Yoda was a lot older, but apparently they all look like that all the time. So that's actually quite an interesting thing we learn about the species. I know I could have said something about that in episode 1, but I'm going to talk about it now. But he's extremely Force sensitive. He's very good at using the Force already, in spurts, and because he's so small, it takes a lot out of him to do so. So basically, they go to the town where the Elsbeth rules that we saw Ahsoka Tano at the gate for earlier, acting like he's got a bounty in there. And they let him in, and you see, like, the people aren't, like, making eye contact. It looks really dark, gloomy, and just fucking overall awful in there. And he even, like, tries to talk to a dude, and he's like, please don't speak to us. Like these people are whipped. They're very disheartened. And Mando's already like, this something ain't right here. I'm fucking sketched out. And basically, at the town, Elsbeth is like, "Look, I have a Jedi problem. You're a bounty hunter. Kill the Jedi for me." And he's like, "I don't really know about all that business." And she presents a spear made of the same material his armor is made out of. And you're like, "Ooh, that's a sexy little peace offering, So he's like, "All right, where is the Jedi?" And as we know, he has no plans of killing Ahsoka Tano. He just wants to find her to figure out what to do with the child. But also, if he could get his hands on that spear, might not be such a bad thing. Because the Mandalorians are the only ones that are supposed to be wielding that material. So he ends up finding Ahsoka, who almost attacks him because, of course, she hasn't had a lot of friendly faces show up around her in a while. And he's like, look, I just want to talk. And she's like, "I hope it's about him." She points over to Baby Yoda. And they can communicate telepathically in a way, just like vaguely, because Jedis do a lot of crazy mind shit. And we learn that Baby Yoda's name is Grogu, which is adorable, like everything else. He was raised on Coruscant for most of his life and was trained by various Jedis. And then after the Clone Wars, when the Empire took over, he was hidden away because, all the fucking Jedi were being murdered, so let's not have to murder this baby. And then he was taken from his hiding spot, and that's when his memory goes a little black. It's when, Gideon was pumping blood out of him, trying to inject it into people to give them Force sensitivity. And also, this is the first time Ahsoka Tano is the only one in this show thus far that has even seen or heard of Yoda. So she's like, he's Yoda's species. And I'm like, finally, another person we can mention this about. Because, we, as the audience, see everything. So we know Yoda. So we're like, it's a baby Yoda. And no one else fucking knows Yoda, has even probably heard a legend of Yoda. Jedi are just a general myth in this galaxy. Very few people know specific Jedi, And she wants to basically give him a test of his abilities to use the Force. And he has had, like, Grogu's like, nope, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm not doing it. And then she's like, all right, you try. And Mando puts that silver ball out, and he's like, come on, take it. And then Baby Yoda or Grogu uses the Force and gets the ball. And Tano's like, look, I can't train him. Mando's like, why? He's like, because he has a lot of anger within him, and he has a specific bond to you. So one, he's not going to listen to me anyway. He wants you. And two, he's got a lot of anger inside of him, and a trained Jedi with anger is a bad thing. Mando doesn't know it, but we know that shit. She saw, one of the worst cases of this ever with Anakin Skywalker turning into Darth Vader. She's got some PTSD from that shit. Because I'm not entirely sure how long ago the events of Rebels were to this, but the whole reveal of Darth Vader being Anakin, and that really broke her. So I understand completely her hesitance to train someone with anger within them, since the last time we fucking did this, Darth Vader was made. Completely understandable. So she kind of, Mando mentions that, hey, I was actually sent to kill you by Elsbeth. And he's like, but I'm not going to do that. And he's like, look, I'll help you, but you have to train this kid. And so they team up, and when it's, as we heard, Jedi and Mandalorian have not had the greatest relationship in the past. So it's like a Jedi and a Mandalorian teaming up. That's something they won't see coming. So Ahsoka sneaks off, fucks up all the guards. I mean, she, that dual-wielding saber shit is always so badass. And the way she uses it to, like, slice and dice people, it's fucking awesome. Like, every time I see it, I geek out a little bit. And, she has the white lightsabers, which I also find really cool because, that's really the only ones we see. And also, when she fucks up the guard, she slices the bell in half, which makes this badass recoil noise when it hits the ground. It just looks so cool. It's very visually stunning. Love it. And then she makes her way to Elsbeth and throws Mando's signet piece on the ground and acts as though she's killed him so that they won't see him coming later. And so basically Elsbeth's like, get her, that classic, like, evil person in charge that just says, get them, that's a classic thing. And the gunman with her and the guards all chase after Ahsoka, who dives off and kind of separates them all and does that, like, horror movie thing where you divide and conquer. I mean, she fucks him up real good. Just one by one, just whoom, slice and dice. And it's just the gunman and her. And while they're doing that business, Mando goes and he kills the two guards that are trying to kill the prisoners and saves the prisoners from the fucking giant electric things in front of the palace. And as he turns around, there's the gunman. And he's like, you're working with the Jedis now? And he's like, yeah, guess so. And they kind of have this weird kind of standoff business. And while they're doing that, Ahsoka finds Elsbeth, and it's that Mandalorian armor spear against the dual sabers. And man, that is badass, because the spear is really cool, because she like clinks it against the ground, and it makes that stance, so it's like bing, and then like ready to go. And it's a super cool, just seeing that fight scene, like, she's blocking the sabers with the blade, and she's spinning it around, like, it's kind of as though, like, it's about the length of, like, Darth Maul's 2 lightsaber in 1 kind of deal. And Ahsoka's wielding one in each hand. So it's this interesting matchup, really. And you can hear the bing, 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 bing every time they hit. And, on the outside, the gunman and Mando can hear that noise. And he's like, looks like they're squaring off. I wonder who's going to win. And he's trying to, like, calm down Mando until, like, if you just keep your level low to try to catch your enemy off guard when you eventually raise up. He's doing that. But, like, of course, Mando's no fucking rookie. He understands what's going on here, So the guy's trying to be like, look, you got to know what's worth dying for, and this really isn't it. And, whoever wins, wins. Maybe we should just get out of here. And during the fight, Ahsoka loses one of her lightsabers, like falls in the water. I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be hard to replace. Like, that was my first thought. Like, not like, oh, she's gonna lose this because she's Ahsoka Tano and she's not gonna lose this fight, but oh man, one of her sabers is gone, and kyber crystals aren't exactly easy to find these days. Then you gotta assemble to make your lightsaber. It's not like there's a Jedi temple anymore. There isn't just hundreds of lightsabers. And you got to get the kyber crystal that makes the white lightsaber, and I believe that's only on the Twi'lek, or the species that she is. They're like Twi'leks, but I can't remember the exact name of it. But that's hard to find. So that, like, it's funny that's the first thought that came into my mind. Not like, oh shit, she might lose. It's like, oh man, she's got to replace that second saber. That's gonna be a bitch. So the gunman acts like he's gonna walk away because you hear the fight stop, because Tano beats Elsbeth. And so he starts to put his gun down, then raises it up, but Mando, boom, like spin, like, because he never really took his hand all the way off. So he fucking does that like Clint Eastwood, like Western shit, where like, boom, he shoots him and he spins it a little bit and he puts it back in the holster, like fucking badass shit right there. And it really looks like Clint Eastwood because he's got the cape, like the man with no name and everything. So it really felt, and I know that was probably on purpose, but it just felt super Western-y to me, and I really enjoyed that. And when Ahsoka beats the general, she asks for Admiral Thrawn. And we get no mention of that the rest of this time. But is that going to come up later? I know they might make an Ahsoka TV show, so, like, is that going to be a thing with that? I was like, who the fuck is Admiral Thrawn? And you don't get any answers with the rest of the season. So I just leave something way open there. I'm like, what is that? What is that business? So the town is taking over new leadership because obviously they're not going to listen to this bitch anymore. She has no army. And Ahsoka gives Mando the spear. She's like, look, this is yours. He's like, hey, I didn't earn that. She's like, it's better in your hands than mine. Because really, she's like, I don't fucking use this shit. I use lightsabers. You not see me back there? And the Mando's like, here, you take the kid, like you said. And she's like, I'm not training him. She's like, but I will tell you this. Take him to the old Jedi temple, like where it used to be. Sit him on the statue, and have him send a little signal out, and a Jedi will probably pick up on that and come. Granted, there aren't a lot of Jedis left alive, but you get somebody, and then that puts that thing in your head, like, what Jedi's coming next? Because Ahsoka's had her moment. How many other Jedis are left in the world? We know Luke's out there somewhere in the world. We know, what about Ezra, maybe? Like, there's open-endedness for who this Jedi could be. And so he goes on his merry way to put Grogu on a statue. Which brings us into the next episode, The Tragedy, which does not mean things are going to go well. As soon as I saw the title of the episode, I was like, oh boy, here we go. So in the ship, Mando is practicing using the Force with Grogu, with the little ball. And you can tell just by the way he talks to him. He's like, man, I'm really proud of you, kid, and that stuff. Mando really cares, which I know his name's Din Djarin, but I'm just going to call him Mando because that's easier, and two, like, I learned his name at the end of last season, and it's hard to say Din Djarin or Djarin the whole time. It's a lot easier to say Mando. So I just want people in the comments being like, actually, his name is Din Djarin. I fucking know this. I just, I'm just, for my sake, you have to write something 1,000 times in your notes. Which would you rather write 1,000 times? Din Djarin, or just Mando? Think about that for a second. But they've really formed this bond. I mean, they've been traveling together for all this time. They've been through countless misadventures. Like, they care deeply about each other. You know, there is a bond there that will never be broken. So he puts Grogu on the statue, and his big-ass fucking blue beam shoots up in the air. You're like, man, that's one, that looks really fucking cool. And two, that's kind of noticeable from the sky. And before they can even fucking do anything, you see a very familiar looking ship start to land. And Mando's like, fuck, we gotta get out of here. And he goes to grab Grogu, and the Force beam blasts him away. It's too powerful for him to break through. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna give you time. And he walks off and meets Boba Fett. Motherfucking Boba Fett, man. Like, that's a callback, man. That's a deep cut. Boba Fett. We haven't seen him since the Sarlacc pit. And here he is, very scarred up. His face is very fucked up. And really, just in general, he's very fucked up. You know, near death will do that to you. And he's like, I want my armor back. And Mando's like, if you want my armor, you're going to peel it off my dead body. And he's like, not your armor. I want my armor. And he's like, are you a Mandalorian? And he's like, I'm just a guy making his way to the galaxy. Which is a weird thing to say. And Mando, you know, does that thing where he's like, well, if you're not Mandalorian, you don't deserve Mandalorian armor. And he's like, that's my father's armor. And as we know, like, yeah, that's Jango Fett's armor. Mando's like, I'm not giving it up. And then he has a standoff. He's like, I got a sniper on your boy. And he looks up and you see Fennec Shand back from the episode where Mando and that kid bounty hunter were after Fennec Shand. We thought she died when she got shot in the stomach by that kid and was left for dead in Tatooine. And Boba's like, yeah, I was also left for dead in Tatooine. You know, people tend to attract that way. And she reveals that he, like, put some robotics in her stomach. So she's kind of like android now. And she's in his debt because he saved her fucking life. And he's like, listen, I promise the child will be protected. Just give me my fucking armor back. And before they can even continue with this transaction, a giant carrier ship of stormtroopers lands. So Mando's like, fuck the child! And so he runs over, tries to get to the beam again, gets knocked unconscious, getting thrown away by that thing. And I'm like, you know, Mando, if you can't get through it, odds are they can't get through it either. So just let the kid be. Like, you know, if they go to grab him, they're going to get blown away too. But he's unconscious. And Fennec and Boba fuck up these troopers, particularly Fennec. In these couple of scenes, like, she's sniping the shit out of them. Like, she's shooting them in the fucking chest, in the face, all that business. And then Boba shows off this badass staff he has. It's like a staff with a blade at the end, and toward the tip, it's got the circle with this, like, spike on it. And it smashes stormtrooper armor. So when he's hitting them, like, armor's been getting, like, shredded off. He cuts up a stormtrooper's fucking face, and you see, like, it shred the helmet. Like, that is about as close to visceral violence as you can get in Star Wars without it, you know, with being, you know, humans. And B, how fucking amazing is that? Like, you know, we haven't seen Boba Fett since Jedi. Comes back, well, I mean, we saw him in the prequels, but I mean, in time, chronologically speaking, you know, we haven't seen him since Jedi, since he fell in the Sarlacc pit. And he comes out and gets to whoop ass with this staff. You're like, fuck yes. All of that business. But the troopers get a Gatling gun, and they're like, well, shit, that's a lot of firepower. But Fennec Shand pushes a boulder, like she kicks a boulder off, and it rolls down, and the stormtroopers, that dumb thing where something's rolling down and they don't just run to the side, like they run in a straight line, so it just eventually catches up and rolls over them, and then the guy on the gun also doesn't get out of the way, and it rolls and it blows up the gun and kills him. And it's like, you know, again, I know this is a show. I know they had to make it do something. It'd be a lot less badass if one stormtrooper got rolled over and everyone else went to the side. But, like, just logically speaking, you see something coming directly at you, you want to just go the other way. You don't run in a straight line. And again, I know this had to happen this way. But it just in my mind, that clicks very fast. Fennec is just a real badass, man. Like, she's fucking everybody up. Mando wakes up, and he joins the fight. You know, he sends out them whistling birds. You know, he's doing gun tricks and shit. They're back. They're doing that thing, him and Fennec, when you go back to back in, like, an action movie, and, you know, their backs are to each other. They're shooting and killing enemies, and they're doing, like, little one-liners of, like, you know, how are we going to hold these guys off? I've been in worse situations. And, you know, they do that little witty banter while also murdering the fuck out of all the enemies. They do that thing. And then, boom, who lands right next to fucking Mando? Boba Fett. With his armor back. And he looks amazing. I mean, he's using all the bells and whistles, baby. You know, he's doing gun tricks. He's shooting behind his back. He's shooting around the shoulder and shit. He's shooting rockets out of his wrists. He's shooting rockets out of his knees. I didn't even know he had rockets in his knees, but he's shooting rockets out of his knees. Fucking up all the stormtroopers. He even, like, punches a stormtrooper in the stomach and then activates his wrist rocket and shoots him up in the air. Real badass looking shit. Like, I, again, was reverted back to the 11-year-old kid going like, oh my god, it's fucking War in the Stars. That's amazing. And then all the stormtroopers get in the carrier, start taking off, and he does that, you know, he uses the rocket on his back, you know, the toy that almost killed a bunch of kids. And he shoots the fucking rocket, boom, boom, blows him up. Real badass movie shit right there. Grogu then passes out because that was a lot of Force shit he was using. And as soon as he does, Gideon sends the Dark Troopers. And they just quickly take Grogu and fly off. Boba gets in his ship and follows and sees a goddamn Star Destroyer. And he's like, I did not know these things were still here. Like, you know, the Empire has fallen. You didn't expect to see an Imperial ship that big still in order. So he has to retreat because his ship, his little very unique looking ship, is like, you know, putting a pencil eraser up to a car, you know, very, very big difference. So he, you know, gets back and he tells Mando, look, we'll help you get the kid back. And he's like, you know, it's not your problem. And he's like, look, I said if you gave me my armor, you know, I would keep the kid safe. He's not safe right now. I got you. And then he shows him his little family crest thing, and he's like, look, that armor was my dad's. I may not be a quote-unquote Mandalorian, but I am. This is my armor. And, you know, him and Mando kind of have that, like, hero agreement where they're like, all right, whatever. Like, you know, we're good. We're on each other's side now. And then on the ship, Grogu is, and this is really cool, he's using the Force. He's just throwing stormtroopers around the room because he's pissed. He's like, you took me away from, you know, my dad. Bam, bam, throwing bitches around, Force choking troopers and shit, like doing crazy, cool, fucking angry shit. And I know anger is not good with Jedi, but I love seeing him fuck shit up. And then Gideon shows off the Darksaber and kind of taunts him a little bit because he knows that, you know, using that much Force, he's going to tire out. And they put him in cuffs. And then Mando makes his way to Cara Dune, who is now working with the Republic. She's now like a Republic cop, an officer. And he's like, I need you to look up an inmate for me. And basically tells her to get Miggs Mayfield out of jail. And she's like, why would I get an Imperial asshole out of jail? And he's like, we need him. They took the kid. And as soon as he said they took the kid, she's like, okay, deal. We're with you. And that ends that episode. Holy fucking shit. That was directed by Robert Rodriguez. And that shows because it definitely was up his alley with the style of being a lot like a Western showdown, a shootout kind of deal. And he fucking delivered that. Like it looked amazing. Boba Fett. Motherfucking Boba Fett. Like, first we got Ahsoka Tano, then we got the 1-2 punch with Boba Fett and Fennec. Fennec Shand is a great character. Really does look badass. It's just, who are you going to talk about more? Fennec Shand, who made her first appearance in the show in Mandalorian, or Boba Fett, one of the OG fucking badass characters of this franchise. You're going to talk about Boba Fett. And we got to see him use, because, in Empire and Jedi, we didn't get to see Boba do much. He's kind of a threat in Empire, and then in Jedi, Luke makes him look like a bitch and sends him into the Sarlacc pit. So we get to see him use everything. The rocket, the back rocket, the wrist, shit, the knee. He had rockets in his knees. Like, that's fucking awesome. It was just really cool, and him fighting with Mando, like alongside Mando and Fennec, was awesome. But just seeing Boba Fett, like I said, it's just like seeing Tatooine or something. If you call back to the original trilogy, it makes the kid in me just really excited, And that brings us to episode 7 of season 2, Believer. Not believer, believer. This has nothing to do with pop stars. So we get Miggs at, his little work camp. And they're like, all right, Miggs, you got to go with Cara Dune now. And he's like, why? What am I doing? And this is odd because in season 1, Miggs is played by Bill Burr. And in season 1, he really has a ruggedness to him. And in this one, he more so just sounds like Bill Burr in a Star Wars situation, which is fine. But he's like, yeah, what am I doing? I don't trust this. And he sees Boba, and he's like, oh, and Boba has a new paint job on his armor. Everything's like, because it was all dinged and scratched all to hell. And he's repainted it a little bit, so it looks a lot nicer. And he sees Boba, and he's like, oh, shit, I thought you were some other guy. Then he sees Mando, and he's like, you want to fucking kill me? Is that what we're here for? And he's like, no, I need you to navigate an Imperial base. He's like, look, I haven't been Empire in a long time. And he's like, yes, but you know more about it than we do, so you need to get us in. And he's like, what's in it for me? And they're like, a better view. But it's also like that thing, like, you don't really have much of a choice, man. You want prison or this, Maybe you might get a little better deal if you do this, but at prison, you're just going to be in prison. Basically, they're on the way to Morak, which is a secret mining hub for the Empire, because when they mention Morak, both Boba and Mando are like, there's nothing there. And he's like, yeah, that's what the Empire wants you to think. Of course there's secrets, like they're the fucking Empire. They use it to mine rhydonium, which is a very explosive mineral, and like Mayfield kind of compares it to Dune as an explosive wanted thing. He's basically flirting with Cara a lot in this episode. Like later on, there's a scene where he's like, oh, I wish you could come with us. You're just a bundle of joy. Like he's very much flirt. Like it's not like a hardcore thing, but like he wants to fuck her, and I think she kind of wants to fuck him, and that's okay. And basically, due to the fact that Cara, Boba, and Fennec would register wanted by the Empire, because the Empire is not too happy with Boba, because he's just a bounty hunter, and he's probably done some shit against them since then. Fennec is not on good terms with them, and Cara was a rebel fucking shock trooper, so of course they don't want her. So the only person that can go with Miggs is Mando. And he's like, look, if a Mandalorian, I can't explain showing up with a Mandalorian. So Mando puts on stormtrooper attire, and they take a ship of rhydonium, and Miggs is making fun of him a little bit, like, oh, Look at you with the fucking stormtrooper outfit on. I thought is it you can't show your face, or is it that you can't take your armor off? Like, which is it? Shit changes, all of a sudden. And Amanda's like giving him nothing. Because Mayfield tries to make small talk, like, oh, hey, we're starting up the thing, this ain't so bad. But, Amanda doesn't really want to have a conversation with this guy. And the whole time, Fennec's watching on the sniper, like, if Mayfield were to have done something weird, she'd have blown his fucking head off. And then they see all the people, like, staring, all the villagers staring at them with these blank stares. And Mayfield's like, look, they don't care. Empire, Republic, we're all invaders to them. We're all shitty people to them. And it really, like, this whole episode, which we'll talk about more later, puts a lot into perspective about what war really is. Like, the real truth of it all. And I loved that they touched upon this. Basically, Mayfield talks about, you believe what you were told when you were a kid. Your morals are based upon where you're born and the people you surround yourself with. Everyone thinks they're on the right side. Whether it's at the Empire, think they're the good people. We're the assholes. And then the rebels, obviously, they think that the Empire assholes. Both have valid points. And then there's the people that are the neutral parties in the middle that don't like the rebels or the Empire because they're causing a lot of destruction in their war with each other. There's a lot of, planets getting fucking ruined and shit. So, it's all about perspective, because, there's people in the Empire that lost a lot of people and the Death Star is blowing up. This victorious moment for the rebels, a lot of people died on those ships. There was a lot of friends, there that, they lost their people. Or just like, Alderaan. Like he says, Alderaan and Mandalore, the two planets that, they both thought they were right. Now they're all dead. And, at the end of the day, what good does that do you? You're fucking dead. Like, Mayfield has a lot of valid points. And he basically, like, ends that whole statement with, look, as long as you can, sleep at night, you're doing better than most people are. And that's like, man, that's the fucking truth of it all. And so during their little trek, they hear ships to start blowing up. And like, why is the Rhydonium blowing up? And these bandits are throwing explosives in the Rhydonium tanks and blowing the ships up because they don't, they don't want people invading their shit. So Mando, of course, has to take care of this problem. And he heads out and he takes the bomb off the Rhydonium, throws it, blows up a dude, throwing people off this fucking ship, blowing up like literal this cargo holds of these motherfucking banditos. And then all of a sudden, all these carriers full of bandits, all armed with bombs, show up, and they're like, how the fuck are we gonna do this? And then you hear triumphant music as 2 TIE fighters come and just blow these motherfuckers up. And this, again, goes back to the Mayfield conversation about perspective. Usually when we see TIE fighters and stormtroopers, we get perilous music, that the Empire music, the dun 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 dun, or even like the like we don't get a lot of like, and I know that was probably a really bad impersonation of the music, but we don't really get a lot of good music, feel good music. That's when the rebels, the X-wings show up, but we got that good feel good music with TIE fighters and stormtroopers, and he's like, you never thought you'd be happy to see stormtroopers, would you? And that again, it's all about perspective. When now you're, doing something for them, it's nice to see TIE fighters, isn't it? It all boils back to perspective. In their minds, they're doing the right thing. And in the bandits' mind, they're doing the right thing by killing all these stormtroopers in their ship as Rhydonium because they're stealing shit from their planet. It's all perspective. It's a pretty big talking point the Star Wars really hasn't done. Like, they've had a little bit of it, but there always has been, like, Jedi good, Rebel good, Sith bad, Empire bad. Like, there have been people the characters that are more complex. There's been characters we sympathize with that are bad guys. There's characters we don't like that are good guys. But at the end of the day, one side is good, one side is bad. That is the general concept we've had since 1977. But now it's become a little more gray and a little more honest, because that's how war works in real life, When America goes to war with another country, in the other country's mind, they're correct. They're just trying not to survive. And we're correct. We're trying to survive. There's a gray area, that all this shit falls under, And like Mayfield says, as long as you can sleep at night, you're doing better than a lot of people are. So I really love that they did that. So they get into the ship, and they need to get info out of the terminal. And Mayfield sees his old captain. And he's like, there's a chance he might recognize me. You need to go in. And it needs a facial scan. So Mando has to take his helmet off, which, again, a big no-no for Mandalorians, to get a facial scan. And before he's done, the captain comes over, and he's like, hey, officer, or hey, soldier, what's your number? And Mando's like, doesn't really know what to say. One, he's kind of just preparing to fight anyway. Two, this guy just saw his face. And three, he doesn't know codes and shit. So Miggs comes in, makes the save. He's like, oh, this guy's number 2275. I'm number 1192. And, he's not that great at hearing. We call him Brown Eyes. And the officer is played by the guy from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 that they hit the cow, and he's like, fuck, 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 fuck. He says fuck 1,000 times and then gets decapitated with glass. That guy is the officer. And I knew it was that guy. I saw him, I'm like, is that the guy from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? He has very distinct teeth. I'm like, fucking guy. I've seen him before. So I called that. I was pretty happy I was able to get that. And he's like, you guys, you brought that Rhydonium in today. Let's go have a drink. And he's like, what should we toast? And Miggs goes a little off course here. He's like, let's toast, the Battle of Cinder. And the guy's like, oh yeah, that battle. Had to make a lot of tough calls that day. He's like, yeah, you blew up a whole fucking planet with a lot of our guys on it. He's like, they're all heroes of the Empire. And he's like, yeah, good fucking thing of being a hero does. You know what being a hero does? You're dead. That's what fucking being a hero is. And they kind of have this quarrel back and forth, and the captain's like, you know what? We're working on some shit now. We're going to bring order. And again, we hear that word order, which, the First Order, we're going to start leaning toward the Skywalker trilogy there. The Empire does, regain itself. But he's like, look, we're going to make the Battle of Cinder look like child's play with the amount of people we killed now. And Miggs, he's tearing up. He's very pissed. And shoots the fucking captain. Kills him. The whole room just kind of looks around, and then he starts killing all of them, and Mando gets, the only takes, one. Mayfield kills most people in this room. Because there's that thing of, yes, there's perspective, but this fucking guy, he's part of the problem. He doesn't care about death, about killing people, and therein lies my problem with people. So that's what Mayfield just couldn't stand to hear that shit, because he lost a lot of friends in that battle, But he also blew their motherfucking cover. And he hands Mando his helmet, and he's like, look, you did what you had to do. I never saw your face. Some real solidifying of bonding here. And they're throwing motherfuckers, they're sniping Fennec is sniping stormtroopers off as they're trying to go over this waterfall thing. And so they're falling to their deaths, and they were probably already dead from the blast anyway. And Mayfield and Mando get loaded onto Boba's ship, and Mayfield snipes the fucking reactor, blows the whole fucking base. Real hero shit there. But that was his job in the Empire. I think he was a shooter. He did a lot better than most stormtroopers. And then Boba does one better and blows up those fucking hero TIE fighters from earlier. Blows them the fuck up with those, those bombs that he uses in the prequel trilogy. They had that like that sound wave explosion, like boom, was like an IMAX movie kind of shit. He does those, and I was like, oh my god, it was the prequel bombs. And so they decide to let Miggs go free. Like, hey man, you did us a big solid. We're going to let you walk. And so he walks off into his new life. And then Mando sends a threat to Gideon like that. And he says, that kid means more to me than you will ever know. I'm coming for your ass. And I'm like, ooh, baby, let's do it. Which brings us to the final episode, season finale of season 2. The last episode of Mandalorian we have to talk about until next year. It's episode 8 of season 2, The Rescue. Oh, baby, let's do it. So, Boba and crew, they track an Empire ship that's carrying Dr. Pershing, which they fucking need, because they need to get some information. And the guard kills the other guard that tries to negotiate, and then it's like, oh, kill this guy. And you want to take this guy into custody, so they'll be pretty pissed if he's dead. And then he starts threatening, like, bringing up Alderaan to Cara Dune. And it's like, please, people, stop. If someone's entire... Which he's like, you blew up the Death Star. I had friends on the Death Star. Which I said, hey, there are people, friends on the Death Star. Clerks said it all. But he's like, yeah, Alderaan, we did ourselves a favor. And then she shoots him in the fucking face. Like, goes right past Pershing's face. And it's, just blaster fire in the face. Fucked him up real good. But like, hey, stop talking about people's dead families. That's a way to get shot. So they go and they try to recruit Bo-Katan and her crew. And they're not too happy to see Boba. They're like, you're not a real Mandalorian. You're a disgrace. You're a sidekick. You're nothing but a clone. And it's like, stop fucking with Boba Fett. Like, he wasn't even being a dick. Like, you just fucking threw it all on him, And so Boba and the other chick, Mandalorian, get into a scuffle. But they draw, and Bo-Katan's like, look, I'll do this. But we want the ship. And I want the Darksaber. And I want Gideon. Man, it was like, cool, man, whatever. We got to get the kid back. Whatever you got to do. So they have Pershing. And he tells them about the Dark Troopers, who are basically beefed up droids who are Gideon's new task force. Basically, the problem with stormtroopers is that they're human. These things aren't human. It'll be a lot harder to kill. So basically their plan is they take the ship they hijacked from the Empire and have Boba chase it. And they're going to act like, oh my god, we're being attacked. And then they land in the big Star, the Star Destroyer. And then, proceed with their attack plan. It's a fairly genius plan, honestly. So they go in, they're fucking up, they do that plan perfectly. Fuck up all the stormtroopers in the hangar. And now the Dark Troopers are activated because Gideon's smart. He hears gunfire. He's like, all right, get them Dark Troopers rolling. So Mando tries to stop them, but one sneaks through, and this one fucks him up. Just whoops his ass. And finally, he's able to get that spear out, and that's the only thing that can stop these motherfuckers. And he jams that spear in this motherfucker's neck, kills that goddamn robot. Boom. Dark Trooper done. And he flushes the other ones into space. Fucking hits that evac lock, sends them out there. But the robots don't die in space. More on that later. And there's like a little fun moment where Kara's gun jams. And she just throws it on the floor. I'm like, hey, be careful with throwing blasters on the floor. But it works, and she fucks people up with it. And there's a really fun scene where Mando straight up snaps a stormtrooper's neck with a spear. Like he wraps it around, like he puts it on his throat. It's like you hear the bone snap. It's like Star Wars. They can't show gore, but they just try to go around that with some interesting violence, like snapping necks and shit. So Gideon greets Mando with the Darksaber, and we know the Darksaber can't cut through his armor. Mandalorian metal is unaffected by the Darksaber. And so Gideon tells Mando, like, look, there's nothing that you can tell me that I don't already know. Take the kid and go. I have what I need from him. And then in that brief moment, he does that thing where a bad guy says go and then tries to kill you when your back's turned. But Mando is no stranger to that. And a fight breaks out. We got the spear versus the Darksaber. And every time that saber hits that spear, it can't cut through it, but you see like the heat start rising up. You see that red start speckling out. And it's like, man, that's a badass fucking thing to do. But Mando, he's the hero here. The show isn't called Gideon. So Mando whoops his ass and takes Gideon hostage. And he brings in, and Bo-Katan looks a little discouraged. And Gideon's laughing at him. And he's like, look, the Darksaber can't just be given in the story. It must be won in battle. You beat me, therefore the Darksaber is yours. And Bo-Katan's, he's like, here, just fucking take the thing. And she's like, nope, he's right. I have to win it in battle. And you're like, are you going to try to motherfucking fight this guy? Because of it, like, just take the goddamn saber. But she doesn't. So it's like, that's got to come up later. Like, season 3, are we going to have Bo-Katan versus Mando because she wants the Darksaber even though he has no fucking interest in it whatsoever? So the Dark Troopers return, and, like, they're pounding, trying to get to the door. And things look a little, hopeless. Like, he got fucked up by one. There's, like, 12. But then all of a sudden we see a Jedi walking through, and we see a green saber and a dark glove. And I already knew then and there, I saw a green saber and black glove. Only one Jedi to my knowledge that wears gloves, and that's Luke because of his hand. And last time we saw Luke in Jedi, he had a green lightsaber. And it turns out to be accurate. And he fucks up all the Dark Troopers, makes them look like the droids, the battle droids from the prequel trilogy, those like really weak motherfuckers that even Jar Jar could take out. He makes them look like that. He's like, but again, Mando's a really good bounty hunter. Luke is a Jedi master that, defeated the Empire. Bit difference in strength quality, right? So he fucks all the Dark Troopers up. Gideon sees this, starts taking shots, but, the Mandalorian armor, shit bounces off. Mando saves the kid, jumps in front of him. Then he tries to shoot himself in the head. Cara doesn't let him. So, boom, he's captured. Like a bitch. So Luke shows up, and he's like, I answered the call. I'm here to take the kid. And Mando's like, okay, take him. And he's like, he wants permission from you. Which is like, oh, tears. And so Mando takes off his helmet, lets Grogu see his face. Grogu touches his face, and he's crying. Grogu's crying. They have their goodbye. I almost cried. They have their tearful goodbye. And Grogu goes off with Luke to train as a Jedi. And Mando heads off on his next journey. And it's like, oh, man. And then in our post-credit scene, we see, what's that guy's name? Jabba's right-hand man? The Twilight guy. He's now taken over Jabba's palace, and he's got a lot fatter. And he has, like, one slave girl. Well, Fennec shows up, cuts the slave girl loose, and Boba Fett kills him and takes the throne. And they said, coming soon, book of Boba Fett. You're like, motherfuck, a Boba Fett show. And just like, what a way to cap this bitch off, So, guys, that was my recap of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. My final thoughts on this season. How amazing was this, man? We got, Tremors, motherfucking, all, Bo-Katan and her crew. We got Ahsoka Tano, we got Boba Fett, we got the return of Fennec Shand, we got the Dark Saber, we got Luke Skywalker. What? Like, all the crazy shit. Like, man, like, this was amazing. Like, Disney knocked it out of the park with this. They did. Jon Favreau is a legend. It was absolutely phenomenal. I enjoyed it. I'm stoked for the Book of Boba Fett. I'm stoked for the Ahsoka series. I'm stoked for the Knights of the New Old Republic or whatever they announced. A Bad Batch. I'm stoked for all of it. This world, they've extended the Star Wars lore and world, and it was just amazing. Like I said, there were so many moments this season in particular that kid watching Star Wars for the first time came out, and I just had like this amazing experience with it. And let me know in the comments, guys, what did you think about this season of The Mandalorian? What were your favorite moments? What do you want to see in the future? Obviously, we got a lot of things set up. I can't wait to see. But I also want the season 3 of The Mandalorian. I want to see Din Djarin's adventures. I want to see down the line, maybe down the line when teenage Grogu comes back and meets back up with Din Djarin, and they have like a reconnection, more adventures. But now that Grogu is a Jedi Knight, he's not a master, but he's semi-trained, maybe a little past Padawan level, seeks out Din Djarin, and they have a little bit of an adventure again. I need that later. Obviously, we got more stories to tell. It might be a while before season 3 of The Mandalorian. But either way, that was fucking amazing. Cannot wait for all the stuff to come in the future. Again, let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification for all my podcasts and videos going to be coming out 2021. Huge, huge year. Not just my life, not just this channel, but the world, I hope. Things got to get better, right? And always remember, stay safe, and most importantly, stay nerdy. I'll see you next time.